I'm Victor Fernandez of Fernandez Fit, and I'm here to show you why fitness is our business. Hello and welcome once again to the Healthy Lives, Healthy Business podcast, the show that helps busy professionals not just survive but thrive in their demanding personal and professional lives by taking control of their health and fitness. I am your host, Victor Fernandez. Thanks for joining me as you do each and every week. I truly appreciate it. Now, if this is your first time listening to the show, welcome. But whether you're new or you've been following for a while, make sure to subscribe to the show and share it far and wide, because many more people need to learn that fitness is our business. Also, you picked a great time to check in, because if you have your sights set on making a better life for yourself, but you don't believe you have the knowledge, the confidence, really the guts to make it all happen, this is the episode to catch. My next guest doesn't simply talk the talk, although yes, he will talk a lot about cool stuff today. He's walked the walk in both the fitness and business worlds. He has hustled his way from online coaching and renting gym space to owning and operating 3 successful gyms. And he takes that same relentless approach when he steps onto the gym floor, because he stands behind what he believes in. He's also a 2-time best-selling author who's passionate about sharing the real, raw truth about building a fitness business. And that's merely a sneak peek into how far he has come in the past 8 years. But I'll let him explain all that, because I couldn't possibly do it all justice. So please welcome to the show, Josh Riggs. Josh, thanks for joining me today. How you doing?
Pretty good, man. Thanks so much for having me, Victor. I've been looking forward to this.
Yeah, I know we were talking off air that you're actually my second. I didn't share this with you before we started, but you are my second repeat guest on the show. So
awesome. So I feel honored.
rare company. Yes, you and Thomas Keenan are the only repeat guests on my show to date. So, but I know when we had you on, it was a long time ago, probably a couple years ago, and you have an incredible story to share. And I know that if people didn't hear it back then, they need to hear it now. So go ahead, for the listeners out there, share your incredible story from where you started, and not that long ago, 8 years or so, to where you are right now.
Yeah, definitely. So my story kind of starts back as an employee at a place that I don't want to mention because I don't want to get sued, but it rhymes with Walmart. I worked at a distribution center.
You didn't hear that, folks. You didn't hear that here.
Yeah, it just rhymes with Walmart. I'm not saying it is Walmart.
Gotcha.
But I worked at a distribution center there. I was on the heavy lifting team and basically unloaded trailers. And I was miserable. I felt stuck. I wasn't living my passion, and it was just soul sucking. And I worked mid shift too. So if you think night shifts are bad or morning shifts are bad, mid shifts are awful because you get nothing. You go in at 2 and you get off at 2. So it's your whole life. And I decided I just wanted to make a change. And so I've always had a passion for helping people in the fitness journeys and helping them reclaim their lives and build discipline through fitness. So I decided to start taking on some clients. I was already working out at a gym, and I decided to see if I could rent space from them. So I did, and they agreed to it. They gave me a really low rent, thank goodness. And I started taking on clients. And it got to the point where I actually started taking on people rather quickly. And I was spending basically from somewhere in the ballpark of 6 a.m. to 1 p.m. training clients, and then I would drive an hour to work from 2 p.m. to 12, drive an hour home, and then sleep 3 hours. And I did that for way too long. Looking back at it now, I don't even know how I did it. Like, I'm not entirely sure how I survived, but I did. Well, I actually ended up getting hurt on the job, and they gave me some leave, and I told myself essentially, this is my chance. Like, I have a break from work. If I go in all right now, I might have a chance to actually make something out of this, make it my full-time career. So basically, I went all in. I had a week leave. I went all in, and I only needed to make up the gap between the two. I only needed, I think, 8 clients. And I remember during this time, it was just foot to the floor, pure brute force, like choosing violence all the way, going after it kind of thing. I got my 8 clients, and I quit Walmart. And as you may guess, I'm on top of the world. I'm living my dream, coaching my clients, living the life I wanted to live. I'm working crazy hours still. I'm still 5 a.m. to 9 p.m. Nothing changed there. And about 4 months in, got a solid rhythm going. The owner of the gyms came to me and said that they're going to have to close their doors. They couldn't keep it open. And during this time, I was doing I was working the front desk for the gym. I was doing a lot of extra stuff just to keep the gym open and running. And it was terrifying. Like, what are you going to do? Your entire like livelihood is invested in this one spot, and there was nowhere else in this little town called Terre Haute, Indiana, for me to go to train. There's no other gyms. There wasn't even a Planet Fitness here at the time, so I had to do something. But I really didn't have much money. I just left my job. I'm just now starting to get this business off the ground, and I was basically breaking even every month. So the business was going to go back to the original owner, and I wanted to. I didn't know what to do, so I had no money, and he just wanted to sell it. He wanted to be done. The gym's gone through 3 other owners at this point, and he just wanted to sell the place. I found out he finally found someone who's going to make him an offer to sell it, and I sat down with him, and I literally just laid out a 5-year business plan. I was like, I have no money. This is all I got. I've seen everything that's failed in this gym in the past 4 years, and this is what I know will fix it. If you give me this chance, then I can make it. And he took a gamble on me. Like, this is not one of those pure like I hustled and I made it on my own. One man decided to take a gamble on me, and it completely changed my life. So he gave me the gym. I leased the building. And it was, as soon as he said yes, it was just a montage. Like, it feels like a montage now, looking back, of just constantly changing everything, putting this 5-year plan in place. Um, and I actually ended up finishing the whole 5-year plan in about 3 years. I ended up way ahead of schedule. And during that time, I caught the interest of some other gym owners, and they liked my method, and I just really liked helping them. So I started giving them all my stuff, right? Like, I gave them everything that I did, my plans, how I got clients, how I structured everything. And they really liked it too. So I ended up quadrupling their business, and they gave me equity in theirs, and that's how I got the other gyms.
Did you get all that, folks? That's, I mean, you don't hear something like that happening every day. And I think in large part is because, you mentioned obviously one man took a chance on you, took a gamble on you, could have just as easily gone in a different direction or maybe not worked out the way that it has. But you also took a gamble on yourself, because it took some, I used the word guts, earlier in the intro. It took some serious guts to go up to him and say, here's my 5-year plan. I have absolutely no money. Take a chance on me. So what within you sparked that ability to just say, you know what, I'm going for it, for what's an otherwise a very scary proposition?
To be honest with you, there was a mixture of two things. One, it was I'm not going back. Like, I promised myself I wasn't going to fail. I was going to find a way to make something work where I wasn't going to go back to Walmart or something like that. The other thing too was I was so sure of this plan. Like, it was one of those things where I seen all the problems. I knew the pitfalls. I had been in this business. I had been in this gym for so long at this point that like I knew what needed worked on. So it was very clear to me what, if these changes were made, that it had a strong chance of succeeding. And once I've made up my mind and I kind of had an outline of what it was I wanted to build and how it needed to look to operate the way it needed to, when I tell you I spent so much time on this presentation that I showed this man, that I can't even put it into words. I probably spent a solid 20, actually probably closer to 30 hours building out this business plan, exact details of everything, when it would happen, how it would happen. Like, I've never put so much effort in a presentation in my life. And I rehearsed it over and over again. Like, I rehearsed this thing. My girlfriend at the time was so tired of hearing it. Like, I was just like, no, I got to try one more time. I missed it. I had said the or like too many times. Like, when I sat down in front of this man, I don't even think I remember talking. It just was autopilot. Like, that's how much effort I put into rehearsing this. And I think that by the time I got done with all that, that I had so much confidence in this vision that I didn't really have much doubt on anything. Like, it was one of those things where I had put everything I had into it, and if he said no, there was nothing else I could have done to make it better anyway. So I basically outworked the fear, I guess, is the best way I could say it.
Do you feel like that's something that last statement you just made, outworking the fear? Do you feel that's something that people really have a difficult time grasping and really conquering? Because when you're talking about you worked in a gym, you saw what worked, you saw what didn't. Same path for me, much later in life, but same path for me as well, where I worked in a gym. I worked the front desk. I was acting GM at a time. I was, assistant GM at the time. I made coffee. I worked front desk. I was the head trainer. For 2 years, I was the only trainer in the gym. And I worked the 14, 16-hour days like you were talking about. And for me, the hardest part was I knew what I needed to do, what my business would be built on what works and what I've seen that doesn't, just like you were talking about. But it was getting past the can I make it happen was the biggest hurdle. And it took me a long time, year and a half, to get past that. For you, just talk about what internally was there to say, you know what, this is going. I mean, you were prepared, yes, but preparation and having the guts to do it are two completely different things. So what got you to that point where it's like, you know what, this is going to happen. I don't care how scared of this I am.
I would have to say, for me, the thing that took away the fear, or didn't really take away the fear. I mean, to be honest with you, I was probably shaking in my boots the whole time. I was probably still scared the whole time. I think it was the separation of understanding. The best way I can describe this is the same mentality I have now, and a
Mm-hmm.
lot of people don't like it, but it's just how I look at things. I fully believe that feelings matter, and you can be scared, and there's no way to stop being scared. And you can feel overwhelmed, and you can feel sad, and you can feel angry, and you can feel anxious, all of these things. I feel that stuff all the time. I'm a
Mm-hmm.
very anxious person. The difference is whether or not you decide if that's going to influence your decisions and actions. I can feel scared and anxious all day, but did I do the things that still need to get done? And I've kind of always looked at it that way. So I guarantee, even in that situation, and this, like I said, was 8 years ago, so kind of a little blurry on me. The I guarantee in that situation was the same thing. Like, I was scared, I was terrified. If this man said no, I don't know what I would have done. But at the same time, the options was be scared and hide or keep going forward. And I found that every time in life, no matter what I've been through, no matter how I feel, keep going forward and taking actions, it has always resulted in progress of some way. And I think the other thing that helps me through it is I've never looked at failure as a bad thing. For example, if I do this and it fails, then I can either learn from that situation and pivot and take the lessons I've learned from this and grow. Perfect example of this. If, say, he would have said no, I now have a 5 years business plan that I am so confident on that I can go somewhere and do a presentation on and maybe get somewhere else. So I think it's a mixture of outworking it and just understanding that, yes, it's going to be scary. Yes, it sucks, but just keep moving forward anyway, and just keep taking action. Don't allow the thought and the fear to stop the action from taking place.
Well, first off, I 100% agree with you with what you just shared in regard. I mean, I am somewhat of an anxious person myself. I get in my own head and just nitpick the hell out of everything that's going on. What about this? What about this? What about that? So why do you think so many people would disagree with the fact, I mean, that we're human beings and we feel these feelings, whether we want to believe it or not, or admit it or not, and that we can still, is it more of the society today where it's that hustle and grind society, that take no prisoner society, like we have to act tough to somehow be tough, and if we're afraid, we're somehow not tough? Is it along those lines, or it's got to be more of an image thing?
I think it's a mixture of both. I think when it comes down to it is people have assigned labels to things and the labels are irrelevant. So, for example, people have assigned being afraid or being anxious as a bad thing or means stop, means danger. And as we express those feelings, for example, if I go to someone and I tell them I'm scared or I'm anxious, a lot of people will look at that feeling and say that means you should probably, you should stop. That's a bad thing. That's a bad thing to feel. You should like hide. You should get away, instead of looking at it as yes, you are. Yes, you do feel this way, but feeling that way is irrelevant as long as you take these actions. So I really think it's the labels we put on them. Like, I don't look at fear and anxiety and all those things as a bad thing. I look at them as feelings, and they do exist and they serve a purpose. But I can be as scared as I want to be as long as I don't think of that as a bad thing.
Oh, 100%. I 100% agree with you in that respect. And something I've had to learn and still learn to this day, earlier I flubbed in the opening intro. I stepped on my words. The old me would have been, man, this, I got to start over. That sucked. Whereas it's like, you know what, just keep on going, and I don't, and it's something I've had to learn over the years. So I truly do appreciate it when someone like yourself shares that sentiment. A, I don't feel like I'm alone, which is great,
Mhm.
and B, it's good to see somebody take control of that and use it in a positive manner. Well, I guess, share with me. Obviously, that's what happened 8 years ago. Now, tell people, how that moment in time has transformed your life over these past 8 years.
So after he took a bet on me, since then it's just been a whirlwind. And there's been several, I mean, it's not, as anyone who's tried to do anything in life, they know that progress is never linear. There's always been like, oh, I got this figured out and I'm wrong. Oh, I got this figured out and I'm wrong. So I've been wrong more than I've been right, but when I have been wrong, I've learned from it more than I've hurt from it. So that's always been kind of a benefit. But since then, basically every waking moment has been dedicated to trying to progress the gym and bring on staff that can uh, fill in gaps, and basically scaling a business and not really knowing what I was doing while I was doing it. So trying to basically like what the way I describe it to a lot of people, it's like walking through a dark room and you have a flashlight, and the flashlight will only look at one thing. You can only look straight ahead with this flashlight. And there's so many things whizzing by you that you don't fully know what they are, but you just keep walking straight forward with a flashlight on the goal. And every now and then something will pop up and you'll be like, oh, cool, I'll use that one. And then you'll just keep going. But it's hard to explain, really. Like the amount of back and forth whenever you're in a brick and mortar or an online business. But since then, I'm sorry, I lost my train of thought there. I completely lost my train of thought.
See, you had an idea and it was wrong.
Yeah, and it was wrong. I had an idea and it was wrong. But basically, what I'm trying to convey is after he said yes, I then put full force into trying to grow and scale the gym. It took up every like ounce of my waking being, and actually for a long time, and still to this day, to be honest with you, the day I became a gym owner was the day that my love for fitness became second priority to me. Like, I love business. I will talk about business all day. It's all I think about. And I actually have to consciously make an effort to get myself to go and work out now and have for a long time. Um, so a lot had changed. And I spend so much of my time focusing on just the business side of things and bringing on staff, scaling the gym, making sure that I have the right people in the right places, and then teaching them and giving them the time and attention they need to do their jobs, that it it's kind of hard to summarize all of it into one little bucket, if that makes sense.
I mean, do you take and I know you're full, you said you're full force ahead, full speed ahead, and you're focusing on continue to grow and scale. But do you ever stop and look back on these past 8 years and wonder, man, and just be enamored at it. If no other better word to describe it, just be enamored at what's transformed in your life from where you were to where you are.
That's a really good question. And honestly, I think that's something that a lot of us struggle with. I do have to actively practice gratitude. Like that is something that I have to force myself to do it. I'm kind of more on the pessimistic side than I am on the gratitude side. I'm also the type of guy that like, I'm so focused on going forward that I don't really look back too often. And when I do, it's more to look for the pitfalls that I fell in so I don't fall in them again. So no, I don't do that as much as I should, but it is something that should be done. And I do try to work it into my life. Like I do take some time every morning to find 5 things I'm grateful for. I do take the time to, whenever I do podcasts like this, take the time to look back at my life and kind of reflect on things and think about the lessons I've learned. And I'm actually working on that more now than ever because there's something that I realized recently is no matter how far forward I push, every time I reach a point that I was so eager to get to, all I do is look up and see another point that I want to get to, and it's just a constant like upward motion trying to go to the next point. And after I made that realization, that's when, which was literally by the way like last year, I've intentionally started adding in more time to actually reflect on the good things that I've done, the successes that I've had. I don't do it very frequently, like I said. It is not something that comes natural to me, but it is something that I am trying to do.
You mentioned, once you became a business owner and went into the world of entrepreneurship, that fitness became number 2 on the priority list. And I think number 2 on your list, I imagine, is far different than number 2 and having it number 2 on other people's lists. And we talked off air about the people that I work with are, people who are so career driven that they really sacrifice of themselves, whether it's career driven to become successful or career driven because they have to support their family, and they become number 2 on the list each and every day. And for so many of us, fall further and further down that list on a regular basis. But talk about, I mean, obviously, if people are watching the YouTube edition of this show, they can see you're in great shape. So obviously you don't neglect yourself from a health and fitness perspective. So talk about the idea of, even though you may not want to do it as much as you used to, you still put in the work because you know how important it is.
100%. This this was probably a trick that I've done for myself. Like this is probably a mind game that I played to make me do it. Um, I've tied in my goals, my business goals, like what I'm actually passionate about, to like my physical health. So, and let me explain this a little bit because it's kind of, I realize it's a really odd philosophy, but it works. So one, whenever it comes to health and fitness, if you want to be in the game of business, then that means you're in it for the long haul. Like business isn't just you don't win at business. Like you have good days, you have bad days, but you really win by just staying in the game of business. Like if you don't close, that means you're winning. Um,
Yeah, very
uh,
true.
so it's just, that's basically the fundamentals of it. And if I don't take care of my health, if I don't prioritize my sleep, I don't prioritize working out, I don't prioritize eating right, if I don't do those things, then I'm not going to be performing in an optimal level to actually be in this for the long haul or make the vital decisions we need to make to move forward. And most of business is just making decisions. Like it's mostly just deciding what you're going to do with your resources because we have like if you take anything to like an extreme, you have so many different options, so many different avenues. And if you took anything to its maximal, you'd be doing something for everyone. But in the business world, you do have finite resources. You only have so much money, you only have so much staff, you only have so much time. So you have to be very strategic with it. So if you're not conscious about what you're doing with it and making the right decisions, then you're not growing. And you need to be in the highest state and highest performance form mentally and physically to be able to make those decisions properly. The other thing on top of that, uh, and this is kind of the weird one, is attractive people sell better.
Well, yeah, that's true.
It's just the truth. So if I want to represent my brand, my company, my business, my philosophies, if I want to represent that and be listened to, if I show up looking better physically, then I'm going to get listened to better as well. It's a really good, like, it's a psychological thing. Like, if you see someone who's in really good shape, you can tell that they're disciplined enough to at least do that in their life, and they're actually willing to put in the effort, which means they're probably willing to put the effort in for you, and it shows they know what they're talking about a lot of the time. So I almost use it. I tell myself like I have to work out because I have to look good, because if I don't, I probably won't make sales as easy.
Oh, I mean, and the thing is, we can say, well, yes, we're both in the health and fitness industry, so it 100% makes sense. You know, if I was, 50 pounds overweight, no one was going to really listen to me about being healthy and fit. But I
Mhm.
imagine that that's something that would also apply to really any industry. I mean, think about some of the biggest names out there in any industry. More often than not, they're in pretty damn good shape,
Mhm.
mentally, emotionally, physically, because and I'm gonna steal a phrase from our friend Jonathan Loudermilk. The way you do one thing is the way you do everything, and I 100% agree with that. I never used to think it that way, but if you stop and think, all right, I'm doing A this way, well, the chances are I'm doing B through Z the same way as well if I really took a look at it.
Mhm.
And when I did, the harsh truth was that's the case. And folks, you have to understand something. I listen when Josh talks. I listen, and I'm not saying that to kind of pump him up or anything. He's got a business mind, just the way his mind operates, that I aspire to, because I didn't have a business background. I still don't think I have the mind of a business owner. I do the best I can. So I listened to what Josh says, because he has that mind that I'm looking for. I wish I could kind of clone his mind and put it in my head. And I say that because I happen to glance over at my screen and I see these words that I'm sure strike fear in a lot of business owners: productivity, time management, KPI tracking, and systems to grow off of. And as he put it, they're my jam. And they are. So talk about how you've been able to really bring, I mean, some very complex topics to, or not just topics, but systems and everything, bring them all together to run a well-oiled, really seamless machine.
Well, first, I'm sure, as you know, Victor, it kind of all starts with like looking inward and
Mm-hmm.
realizing the improvements you need to make. So I'm just gonna lay out the journey. So I'll try not to ramble too much. But to answer your question, I need to give a little background. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
and by the way, thank you so much for that. I appreciate the business owner
That's
mindset thing. I try my
all
best.
truth, all truth.
Honestly, it all started with understanding and accepting the fact that I suck at a lot of things. A lot of things.
Oh, good. I feel
And
better
I
now.
and the thing is, again, we're talking about labels. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I don't label sucking at something as a bad thing. If you can look at something and admit that you suck at it, then that's the first step to getting better at something. Like, you have to suck at something first to get good at it. So I literally sat down and made a list of all the things that I suck at, and then decided to take on one of them and just try to suck a little less at it. And that's kind of how I like merged a lot of that stuff together. But through that, I kind of like laid a foundation of like a brick by brick process of how I kind of built everything out. So, for example, um, I was really bad at trying to come up with like trying to take what I do and have someone else do it. And that was imperative for me to be able to offload a lot of my work, right? So the first thing I had to figure out was how to make systems and SOPs and things along those lines to uh, duplicate what I do at a high level. So I had to get a little bit better at that. So I started recording what I was doing. I started listening to a lot of people who's made SOPs. I started taking in a bunch of knowledge as much as I could. And then as soon as I got the knowledge, I kind of filtered through what I needed to work on, and then I just started doing it. And I kept doing it. And when I tell you I had to make SOPs like over and over and over again because I kept getting them wrong, I probably spent like a year on this trying to like get them right. So that's kind of, I kept doing it until I sucked a little less at it. And then I started to like it because I got a little good at it. So then I started making my systems and actually giving them to people, like in the Fit Pro Collective. I'd be like, hey, here's what I just did with my systems. Now you can do it. But then afterwards, I needed to figure out a way to tell if the systems were still working or not. So it doesn't matter how good your system is. If it's outdated, no one cares anymore. It's kind of like if someone's posting on Facebook, but they're constantly posting like old ads that no one wants to see anymore, then it's useless. And you need to know that. And the way you know that is by tracking KPIs. So I realized that I had no like litmus test to see if the systems that I was putting in place was actually producing any kind of revenue or actually working or even worth doing anymore. Because at the end of the day, like you don't want to be doing something that's not working or that is pointless is worse than literally doing nothing at all. um, so that's when I started to learn how to do KPIs and figuring out what actually mattered in businesses. And that kind of sparked a whole new avenue for me because then it taught me that business and growth and everything associated with it, this is where the emotion side of things come in play. It doesn't matter how you feel because if you can break whatever it is you're trying to do down to just actions and uh, outcomes of those actions, like if I do this many times, typically this happens, I can feel awful. But if I go on Facebook and I message 100 people, I will at least get 10 people to talk to me, and typically one of those 2 people will buy from me. So that's when KPIs really led into the next process of this whole thing, was realizing that it is okay to feel awful. It is okay to be scared. It's okay to be where I'm down. And up to this point, I was with the whole like mantra of like, never admit that you're tired, just keep going anyway. That's when I realized like it's okay. I can feel that way, but it's also okay because I can just do the thing that I need to do and just keep doing that thing, and I will get the result. And as I learned that and handed it on to my staff and like kept teaching other people how to duplicate the processes, pay attention to their KPIs, that's whenever I really started to enjoy the fact that like business was literally just looking at a number and being like, okay, so this number is what's sucking right now. And I know this sucks and that's okay. Let's try to make it suck a little bit less. Like if churn's too high, can't have that. So we're going to look at churn and figure out a way to fix churn. And once we fix churn, what's the next lowest thing that we kind of suck at? Oh, we're only getting 3 leads in a week. We should probably look at that one because that's the lowest one. So now we're going to look on trying to get, and it's this revolving door of constantly seeing where you suck and trying to improve on that. And that's kind of like where my fascination with the whole thing came from. Because I'm sure you know, Victor, whenever you first start, the hardest part of it isn't necessarily knowing it's not doing. Like doing is hard. The issue is you don't know what to do. There's so much information. You have no pre-existing skills to associate that what to do or like what that information is good or bad. So you just kind of like firing from the hip and not sure what to do. Once you get to the point where you have a system, you have KPIs to know if the system's working. Then it's simply just going, what KPI is lacking and where do I put my attention? And it just takes all the stress of not knowing what to do away. And I love that.
See what I mean, folks? That brain of his that's going on in there, it computes a lot differently than most of us. Most of us mortals. So that's the brain I want. There you go. You just in a nutshell, you just got exactly what I'm looking for. But I appreciate that. I certainly do. Well, before we wrap things up, I mean, obviously 8 years and so much has happened in those 8 years. So what do we expect from Josh Riggs and Dedicated Health and everything? Because we haven't even, put the name out there until 33 minutes in. Uh, where do you go from here in the next 8 years? Since that seems to be the nice round number.
So right now, sorry, my dog is climbing all over me. So right now, my main objective and main goal is I still love my businesses. I still love Dedicated Health, and I'm still going to be owner, and I'm still going to be heavily involved in it. But like we were talking about, whenever I first started my journey, there was so many unknowns, and I didn't have any like prerequisites to like filter that information. I had no way of associating what I should listen to, what I should do. It was just, I was lost. And looking back, that was a terrible time. Like that was one of the hardest times of my life. So I've right now my main focus is to make the community and the systems that I wish I had when I first started, or the community that would have helped me get to where I am now faster. So all of my focus is going into what is called the Real Talk with Real Fit Pros school group, along with the ARIA CRM system. And my goal is to give anyone who's interested in growing in the fitness industry a community of people who's all in the industry to connect with, work with, and get ideas from, so they don't have to run out there and shoot from the hip like most of us did. They can actually have real systems from people who's really done it or are still doing it. And then the ARIA software is going to come in to fill in the gaps and let them automate some things, let them have the tools they need to actually perfect their craft. And I can tell you right now, I'm very passionate about this. This is definitely what 4, 5, 8 years from now, if we hop on another podcast, this will still be what I'm talking about, because I know how hard it is to start from ground zero with no support.
No, 100%. And I know that feeling, and that's why I'm part of those groups myself, because I know I don't know it all. Far from it. I'm sure Josh has forgotten more than I will ever know. So it's people like Josh and Jonathan. Those are the people, that, and so many more, that come together and really help everybody out, and help navigate this. Because otherwise, like you said, you're going through that room with a flashlight that only points at one thing, and you have to figure out the rest, all the blackness that's going on around you, all the darkness, but that's why I wanted to get you back on the show. I wanted to pick your brain some more. Mm-hmm. I had selfish reasons, ulterior motives.
Well, I appreciate it, man. I loved it.
Well, Josh, I appreciate it once again, folks. You heard it here firsthand. You understand why he is part of my inner circle. I mean, besides the fact he's just a good dude, period. He knows so much. He's got such an inspirational story. I mean, how can you not get motivated to want to tackle something that really scares you after you hear a story like that? He took a chance. I know somebody took a chance on him, and that was awesome. But he had to take advantage of that opportunity, and fear and all, to make this happen and to become the person and the business person that he is today. So obviously, if you're in the health and fitness industry like I am, come join us. Pick his brain. You're going to learn a lot. And even if you're not, just from a business perspective, you're going to learn a lot. No doubt about that. So Josh, once again, thanks for having you on. Before we wrap it up again, tell everybody where they can find you on the old social media and interwebs, as Mark Zalmanoff would say.
The good old interwebs.
Interwebs.
If you want to find me, you can literally find me on any social media: Instagram, YouTube, Facebook. YouTube's probably the best one, but my handle is always I am Josh Riggs. Super easy.
There you go, folks. All right. Well, once again, appreciate it. Appreciate you, Josh. Appreciate all you out there who tune in each and every week. I do greatly appreciate it. I'm glad to know that at least some people listen, so I'm not just talking by myself half the time. So that's really good. So once again, make sure to leave a review, subscribe, and of course, most importantly of all, share this show far and wide, because there's more and more people out there that need to know that fitness is our business. Thanks so much for listening. I hope what we've shared on this show truly resonates with you. If you want to learn more about the health and fitness services I provide, head to my website, fernandezfit.com. If you're ready to connect with me about health and fitness coaching, send an email to info@fernandezfit.com or a text to 814-504-7774. And of course, you can find me all across social media: Victor Fernandez 123 on Facebook, Fernandez Fit on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn, as well as the Healthy Lives, Healthy Business channel on YouTube. Thanks again for tuning in, and until next time, always remember, fitness is our business.